Captain's Neck Lane Realty LLC is adjourned until 5:13. Moving on to Karen and Robert Kelly, 45 Meadowmere Lane, construct two-story single-family dwelling with attached garage and attached pool house.
Good evening. For the applicant, John David Rose, architect.
And Scott Rose.
And Scott Rose. That's what it is.
We're ready.
Additionally, we have reduced set plans for you.
Great.
Should be 2 in the file, but we brought 1 for everyone. Turn this one up. You sure?
They're going to give us...
And the sets we've just given you are the same ones that are in the file. Of course, in the file is the large ones, but they're real big, so reduced sets will be very helpful. In that package you just handed out should be floor plans, elevations, roof plans, section, a site plan, and a survey. So the house is not in the historic district. It's in an R120 zone. The lot area is 83,692, or just about 2 acres, just shy of 2 acres, 1.921 acres. Allowable lot coverage is 13,216. Proposed lot coverage is 12,378, so we're lower than the allowable. The allowable GFA is 9,869. The proposed GFA is 9,677, so we're also lower than the allowable GFA. I just wanted to clarify that the survey states 15 bedrooms. We actually only have 9 bedrooms. But as you probably are aware, the health department has to design the systems around what would be a bedroom. The building department, as of May 2015, adopted the health department's requirements. So we have to show 14 cars. It's a code requirement. But
So you have to show 14.
14, it's
Parking
1 less
spots.
car per, if there's, in this case, it's technically 15 bedrooms. There's only 9, but 15 bedrooms require 14 cars.
So people, say study, but it has a bathroom and a closet, and that's of it. So that Suffolk County just decided to call anything that's got a bathroom, isn't that it?
It's more than that. Studies, dens,
dens,
libraries,
gyms, you name it, you got it. Yeah.
Sorts of
crazy
bathroom,
stuff.
that's the requirement.
No, it's not the
No,
bathroom, it's the
but that-
kitchen, believe
It's
it
the
or not.
space.
It's the
I actually
space.
have a copy of the law if you'd like it.
I'm sat through a lot of meetings.
Not interested.
I actually think it's okay because it just simplifies everything.
Just wanted to make that clear. So in your files, you're going to find some surrounding pictures of the subject property, our property. Take a bunch of shots going up and down the road. The house across the street, pictured right here, I did several years ago. That's 80 Meadowmere. That house is 16,000 square feet. The stucco Mediterranean house, I'm looking at them upside down now. This one here, depending on who you speak with, it's between 25 and 30,000 square feet. The Mediterranean guest house at 91 Meadow Lane, which is directly adjacent to the west, is 7,000 square feet.
Meadowmere.
I'm sorry, Meadowmere. The adjacent house to the east at 199 Cooper's Neck is approximately 14,000 square feet. This one here. Our house will be a 2.5-story with a maximum height of 35 feet above the DFE flood design elevation. Siding will be red cedar shingles with a 6-inch exposure. Roof will be red cedar shingles with low-slope roofs, dormers, and the bell roof, we use a standing seam copper roof. Gutters and leaders will be copper. Soffits and fascias will be painted white, but the frieze boards will be shingled. We brought along some images of homes that we've done that you may be familiar with. This is 80. That's 80. Can you see that one, Paul?
Sorry, could you zoom in on that, please? Thank you.
And the reason this is kind of important, A, it's the neighbor across the street, and it was an Architectural Digest, great home. It's this detail that's kind of important, which is picked up here and here. One of the things that we're seeing so much of is a lot of horizontal white trim, and it shows up everywhere. So one of the things we've done in the past is instead of, and if you look at John Russell Pope's work and a lot of the old history, you'll see these types of shingle details. So instead of a big piece of whiteboard, you'll see a shingle detail. It happens here, and once again, 80 Meadowmere Place has it all along there. So we're downplaying the amount of white trim.
Do you think that helps make the building look smaller?
I think it gives it more depth.
I
Don't you
know
have
we're
the
in the
trim
land
too?
of giant
Oh, yes.
houses.
Yes.
So you have the trim and the frieze underneath the trim in the gables.
Correct.
So how is that minimizing the? I'm
So-
sorry, how's that minimizing the?
If you take a look at this one here, it's quite frankly, it's a detail. If you look here, and you
There's-
have another one here that's in there. No. It actually, although it's painted white, you'll see it here in the one that we did. These arches are all shingled as well. They've been painted white now in that case, but originally it wasn't. But here's another one that we did on Shelter Island. You'll see instead of a big piece of white, you'll see the arches are shingled. But to your point, you're right. There is white trim, the soffits and fascia.
Which is not true about 80.
It's a little bit different, but there is the frieze board that is a shingled frieze.
Right.
Which is what we're gonna propose. Which is what we're doing on the proposed job.
But that doesn't have the big fascia board.
This one does not.
Right.
The crawl space, because there is no basement, what part of it is exposed will be red brick. Windows will be Marvin double hung with a 2/2 simulated divided light. Porches and patios will be bluestone. The front gates that exist now we'd like to keep. They show up in. Do you need some work? But we'll bring it back to life.
We go to northern elevation.
I beg your pardon?
Northern elevation. This has some.
So not on your side?
Northern.
Yeah.
It's A21.
21.
Dark shed dormer on the third floor there shows the two windows that are
Yeah.
set aside. There's a single window and then there's empty space there. It just seems I don't know if there's some symmetry is just missing there. Is there a reason for the?
You lost me. Where are you referring to?
It's the dorm, shed dormer.
Oh, the shed dorm between.
If you head directly north of the T.
Yep, I see it. Yep.
What's driving the ununiformity of the
The
windows?
interior floor plan.
Sorry,
Interior floor plan.
So
Not
what's up there?
reading really tough.
Is that the
So
crawl
what's
space?
it, there's a wall or something?
Yeah, there's a wall up there. But I will tell you, although it's not invalid, I will tell you it faces the field, and you will not see it from the ground, I don't think.
Right here, we have an intersection wall.
And then I go on to, some of the windows have shutters, some of the windows don't. There's different dimensions. Is there a reason why?
Sure. You look through the history books, that was a real common thing. This home here, the window coat that we just, window coat, same type of thing. There were plenty of windows that had them and plenty that didn't. It was a common thing. And these will be real shutters like they are at 80, operable.
It's normal, you say it's normal and typical to have the shutters in the second story recessed off the deck? So that second story, is that a recessed area?
It's a sleeping porch. Yeah.
Okay.
Or recessed porch, yeah.
So what? Yeah, that's a good question. What was the answer?
I will tell you, it's probably 10 feet back.
Kind of like we have at
Yeah,
Winco
if you
here.
look at window coat, they were there.
Right,
Okay.
but but are there any other shutters on this facility?
It's sporadic. There's some on the first floor, there's smaller, they're
Right,
less
only on this,
impacted. Overall, it's an impressive house. It's a lot to take in.
yeah, almost too much.
I found when I was on that street and I looked at some of the houses that you ended up showing, that it fits well into that neighborhood and it's scale for that property. In fact, I think about, the case we had before. This has, what, a 35-foot roof? And the house we looked at before on a third of an acre had a 33-foot roof or something like that. I mean, talk about scaling. This is a big,
But
grand
this is a
house, but
sprawl.
if you look at the house, well, surely the stucco house, I mean, that's just a whole totally different ballgame. It's a different house, and it's a beautiful house in its own way. But there are other, if you want to call this summer cottage, traditional houses, this fits that. The use of the shingles is reminiscent to
Summer
that.
cottage traditional, is that what you
Well,
call
I
this?
don't know what the hell I'm talking about,
Scully has.
but it also makes me think of the house that you did on South Main Street, on the corner of South Main Street and Gin Lane. It has some of those elements to it
That's
as well.
an old house.
And that's a beautiful
That's
old
a
house.
historic house.
Yeah.
Both
I think
both
this
is
has-
that South Main.
This is
Yeah,
a new
window
house.
coat and the one next to it. But you're
So-
right, there's a lot of those features you pick up. I wish I could say I invented them, but I just took them
And
from my own projects, but
So how are we doing on, so I did see a roof plan, just saying. I find the south elevation, it's probably the rendering, seems pretty busy to me, and it just seems like, could we get rid of something? The round windows would be my first ixnay.
so
Boy, the both porte cochere on both sides, what's the point? Are those lights?
windows.
Windows, I'm not, and then we've got like a bell shape with copper roof. I
So
mean,
this is
there's-
one of those cases where,
Little dormer in it.
this is one of those
Lot.
cases where the drawings are small, so you get to see it all in one shot. The fact is, when you look at the larger scale drawings, it doesn't feel quite as compact as this.
But,
But
so you've got with this bell-shaped, what would you call that? Appurtenance, I don't know what to call it.
a
It's not-
bell-shaped roof.
Bell tower.
Bell tower.
But it's not really a tower, because it comes out of the porch on the
turret.
first floor.
yeah.
So behind there is a, what is that?
What room is that?
No, what's behind it that I can see?
The
The
shed
roof?
coming off to connect it.
Oh, there's a series of doghouse dormers that come off with this copper roof. One faces south, east, and west.
And so the thing, no, I'm asking about the structure behind the bell.
There's a ridge line behind it.
Yeah, what is that? And what is the
It's a
roof of
dormer,
that?
right?
That's a dormer, a big giant dormer?
No, this is the ridge line behind.
I think she's talking about this form right here, this roof and these shingles.
Yeah, where's that?
Those are 3 doghouse dormers.
Those are the dormers coming
Oh.
off the side.
Yes,
Okay.
one forward and 2 to the sides. So you're seeing a doghouse dormer from the side. Admittedly, it's an odd way to look at a doghouse dormer. In reality, you'd see it in perspective, but
And I also, what is this? Looks like a little
covered porch.
crown. It's
What
over
is-
the porte cochere.
Oh, it's the dormer, shed dormer over the porte cochere.
And where's the
It's a
roof?
sleeping porch.
but it's
sort of,
recessed like these series of.
Yeah,
It's a sleeping porch. No one sleeps on them, but that's.
And so where is it coming off of? In your rendering, what drops out? Where's this?
That is coming off between the space on the second floor between the main house and the bedrooms above the garage.
And it is attached to, it just seems to be floating, that's my
No,
problem.
there's a roof behind it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Siding.
Yeah.
There's a roof. There's a very strong roof that'll support it visually. Admittedly, when one shows the graphic shingles on the elevations and not on the roof, it jumps out, but
All shingled.
it's,
These are so good.
if I need
I
an
gotta
example.
go.
So, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Rob.
I'm with Susan. First of all, there's a lot that I like in here, and I do love the use of the shingles around the arches and around some of the openings. Under the eave line, I have a different view of it. If that were essentially the fascia board, I would like it. In combination with it, that's part of what feels busy to me. I know the shingles will weather, but having a pretty strong fascia board and the shingled frieze underneath it feels like it's gilding the lily a little bit. It just feels busy. I think those doghouse dormers are not successful. I think maybe it's too big for each of those. It's an octagonal roof on that bell, the bell roof.
Which elevation are you looking at?
I'm looking at the south
19.
elevation, sorry. I'm looking entirely at the south elevation.
Yeah.
So that dormer form looks big to me relative to both the window size and also relative to where the seams are in that metal roof. And it just feels like it's, again, a lot. There are, by my count, 3 different arch types on the front. You've got the big sleeping porch over the front door, which I love. Looks like the house across the street. You've got a sort of carriage arch on the porte cochere, and then you've got a sort of eased arch on the porchways and in some of the sleeping porches. And it just, those different arches I think could look good, but it starts to feel puts a little pressure on it to me. And the thing that I think stands out the most is the octagonal conservatory room, or the projection off the very center of the main eave, or main gable form. To me, that feels incongruous with, that's the most, to me, incongruous part of what I see in the design. But talk me through it, with the paneling on the bottom.
Sure. So let's start with the arches. One of the nice things about them is when they weather out, such as they did, or started to in this picture here, they kind of blend in.
Yep.
So there are different shapes. As you pointed out, we have one like that. And then over here, if I can, this one, where's the back of this? Here, there. There you go. That's the picture. And the picture's up here. There's a picture that might sum up the arch that we described that happens there. Now, in this picture, it's almost new, this house here as well. So once this starts to blend in, those arches blend in. That's one of the beauties of doing that shingle detail, is that it really does age and it doesn't jump out at you.
But in the other photograph, just below the one you're holding, yeah, that seems, and this is your house?
This one I did, it's on Shelter Island.
Is the turret, John, in that house recessed back and built in more than this one? In the two-dimensional, and maybe this is what Rob was saying, that it looks like it jumps out. I don't know if that's
No, it's
a
this
matter of the drawing, the turret, or is it going to be set in, and if so, how much? Because it looks like it comes
Just
out
to be clear,
flush.
what I said was jumping
What's
out
on the
actually was
ground
this
floor?
form, the
Yes.
single
Oh,
story.
okay.
I agree with you about that, Rod. Where that came from, I don't know.
Never
It
mind.
just feels like there's a lot going on. The porte cochere, that octagonal room, the bell
Different,
tower, a very prominent arch. I know that the edges will go away. There's a lot I like here, so I should start off by saying it's a beautiful design.
Bless you.
I'm struggling with the elements all coming together on this south side. It feels like a lot. It feels busy.
If I may answer your question, it's not nearly as big as this one. That one's rather grand. It is recessed and over a space below it, so it doesn't stick out past the house. Quite frankly, the porches on the lower level stick out the furthest. So like with most of our houses, we try very hard when you get closer to the property edge to have it grow in both north, south, east, and west. So the tallest part is usually around the center of the home.
Right.
Is there living space in that dorm, in the turret, well, what we're calling
Yes.
turret? There is living space, so that's the reason why you have the dormers there.
Natural light and ventilation. I think to your point, though, that on a drawing, it doesn't read as strong as it does perhaps in this. If I showed you the drawing of this home, you probably would have a similar feeling to it.
The lead-coated copper, is that just on the bell
So
turret?
that's a misspell in our case. It's all copper, it's not lead coat.
But then
Okay.
there's copper.
I
Is this
apologize.
copper?
It's copper.
So, and is that the only copper roof?
No,
No,
over the porte
there-
cochere.
Wherever it goes below a 3.5 and 12, we go to a copper
Okay,
standing
over the
seam.
dormers.
Yep.
How about over that octagonal form in the center and the front on the south
No,
elevation?
along this whole row here, at one point, we examined copper. We're considering cedar. We can go either way. As long as it's above a 3.5 and 12 pitch, we can put a cedar roof on it. And a lot of these homes here, almost all of them have plenty of copper on their shed dormers. It adds a nice texture to it.
Is there access to the third-story roof?
The third-story roof
I
is
mean,
solar.
to the flat portion of the roof?
Third story, well, you have to go up there to service the solar panels, but, yeah.
It's not a deck, that's my
Well,
question.
no, it's solar panels only. We're putting a 10 kW system up there.
Great.
Similar to the one, this one here has the same one. And you'd never know it.
So is there a way, I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I still have the south elevation. I feel uncomfortable with how much is going on.
Another, just quick point, am I seeing this correctly, that you have a window in the chimney on the north
Yes,
side?
what is that? It's on the other
Done
side,
that detail
too.
quite often. It's a lot of fun. Beg your pardon?
You have a window in the chimney?
We do. It actually goes through the building, and the flues go up on either side of it, and it dumps great light into the space.
Is there a garage?
There is? Yes.
Yes, it's
But the doors are facing the side, so
I'm
you can't
sorry,
see it.
I was too busy with,
East elevation, Michelle.
what is that? West.
Is there living space over the garage?
There is. Page 822 would show the garage.
Is there a reason in the pool house why you've gone to 12/6 on the roof pitch? Just to differentiate it, make it look like a,
That's your building height. Yeah, keep the height down.
okay. Is it attached though, or not? No,
That's
it's
on the
not.
second floor only.
Who else is
I'm sorry?
Attached on the second floor only.
Attached on the side.
That's where the breezeway,
Okay, maybe I'm,
there's a little breezeway there between.
Yeah, you can walk between them.
I see. And I'm sorry, one last question. I'm seeing this sort of slightly hourglass or tapering, curved taper to the roofs over the dormers, the shed dormers, like on the south side. What creates that? I mean, just, you know,
So,
this sort of,
if I may hand this picture up?
sure, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to keep this?
I would like to, if you could stamp it on the back.
Can we just take a look at it, or? Whatever you like. Need to go into the file? Okay. I'm just trying to.
So if you look up at the top on the the second upper level, you'll see that shed dormer, and the soffit comes up, and the boards come up, and they splay out like this and turn like that. That's also a John Russell Pope detail.
I see.
If I,
Right,
does that answer the question?
I
It's hard to
think
see in
so.
there, and quite frankly, it will be the same thing here. You won't.
So the wall form itself doesn't flare
goes-
out?
that's right. That's right.
There's
It
a
goes-
deck on top of the fascia
Almost
board
like, yeah,
that sort
that's
of...
right. It goes up and it flares in and it
And the
blends
roof
into the
goes
roof.
over that.
It's kind of
I see.
a fun,
It's just right up here. It's just
a better picture.
it's just this little detail
It
here,
goes,
where there's a flat board that kind of comes out and makes the roof flare, where the shed dormer roof meets the main roof. Okay, so it's not, that's what I couldn't tell, is the walls changing somehow back there.
And that's kind of one of those things, if you look at this elevation, it sticks out. But when you look at it in real life, very few people, I mean, I see it and like it, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you done a rendering of this house?
I've not,
Would it be hard to?
very hard to do. It would be.
Even with the CAD software, I thought that was
It's
F8
interesting.
or something.
It's
You just
interesting
press the button.
because the programs that work well with the rendering is a Revit program. But this house is a bear to put in Revit, quite frankly, so we're in AutoCAD. It could be sent away to some other place and done, but it would be a while.
well,
I think it's a fun house. I really think it's a fun house. But I see Zach over there biting his. Yeah. It's reading historic, but it's not historic. It's not a historic community.
I'm just looking at it as historical allusions or references, I should say.
References.
And I think your dormer windows in the roof of the bell roofed form is kind of challenging. First of all, just historically, I don't think that's a room that you would occupy because it's not usually lit. So finding a way to light it up with windows is a way to light it up. But by introducing these kind of conventionally shaped and very large-scale dormers to that roof, it just doesn't work historically. And if anything, this is a pastiche of historical references to, so that I have and it contributes to sort of that sense of a lot going on the front, because if that were a simple, not all that simple, but if it were a conventional bell-shaped roof, that would be a thing, that would be a form. But now it's punctuated with these three large dormers, which, I don't know, kind of doesn't make it that anymore. It's not that conventional shape, which is quite, lovely and compatible with these other forms. I also think contributing to this sort of sense of a lot going on, or the busyness, are these dormers with the roofs that flare out the top. In other words, the cheeks of these dormers are not being splayed. They're going straight back.
Correct.
Okay. So the sides of these dormers are going straight back. Right. But this is not that. So what I'm seeing is that the sides of the dormers go straight back, but the roof is made to flare.
Correct.
Where it reaches to the roof without any, just for decorative purposes. It's not structural.
Correct.
Similarly, the base of these dormers is flaring out on the front, also for decorative effect. This little detail right here.
Yes.
That little thing there.
Yes.
So I'm just saying, once that's repeated there and here, that also contributes to that sort of extra ornament, whereas I just feel there's so much going on in the forms with their historical references that those extra details of ornament are extra details of ornament that don't contribute. I mean, I think there's nothing simple about this house. There's a lot going on. The scale is quite large. There are all sorts of roof forms that you've worked with, which each have their historical references. But I think those extra touches just complicate it.
So removing one would simplify it.
no, removing 1, 2,
I just don't understand
4,
the lit
5, 6.
roof.
Yeah, and that would be the one I would
That'd
say
be all
that
three
is
of
probably
them,
more
yeah.
problematic, just
Yeah.
because it's
I just find there's so much going on, and it kind of emphasizes the occupation under the roof, when in fact, this is really, actually and technically, it's a two-story house. It's a large scale, but it's a two-story house. That's the attic. So by bringing these conventional windows up to that third story that have a
They have
full-
living quarters in the attic.
It's a 2.5-story house.
Yeah, there's living quarters.
Well, we each have our own definition, and we don't have the time for me to define my definition
Okay.
of what's a two-story house, which
Okay.
this is, for me. And you're referencing historical forms, and so there you go. So everything above the roof plate that is not a full is a half, or an attic. So to me, this is an attic. I just find trouble with those dormer windows in that bell-shaped roof, which is kind of, it's sort of like the one historical feature that your eye goes to, which is a classic.
L-shaped roof, I'm sorry.
The bell roof.
The bell,
Bell.
bell shape.
Yes,
I thought they said
that.
L.
Is there a way,
L, I'm sorry.
is there a way to get the light you're looking at without
That's
such?
my only thought.
Why is
No, there's no way to,
You haven't, well, I know, is there a way to still bring in the type of light you're looking for without the type of dormers intruding out? Is there another style?
So to get light up to that story or attic story, you're going to have windows. And because it is a pitched surface, it's raked like a bell. I mean, we could play with the pitch of the dormer, but I don't suspect that's going to solve the problem. I do maintain that in 3D in real life, they are played down, not up. But probably 2D drawing works against us a little bit. Can I do that bell tower and still get lights in it? I don't have a good answer to that one. I've not seen it done. I haven't done it. I mean,
So the interior of the top of the bell is attic space, living space, attic
Sleeping
space,
quarters.
no,
Living
habitable
space.
space. living
habitable space. And so part of the bell opens up into a room, or I'm trying to...
Correct. Right, so you have a ceiling that follows the shape of the bell, and then in an area approximately this wide, you have a double-hung window with a dormer, and that happens 3 times.
3 times. Yeah. 3 times might not be the
but
charm
with
in
your
this case.
Shelter Island project, you found a way to get a third-story tower room.
With going
which is
around
lit,
wrapping those
which is-
windows.
Those windows. But I mean, it's not terminated in a roof form, which is traditionally closed. So I think it's trying to make something work here that, using that historical form, isn't a thing. It's, you've gone up, you could go up with a round, and then a conventional octagonal roof or something on top of it with another story, with carrying those 6 sides up to another story.
So I need to point out that this one is 5 stories high? And
Yeah,
that was a
well, I was looking at the
pre-existing-
story below it, which
Right.
has windows, not the open porch. but-
This was a historic renovation. This portion here was a tower that was
Okay.
saved on Shelter Island.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm looking at the bell tower there
On the
and
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
showing the,
Right.
Windows that just wrap at the
Correct.
base.
There is no habitable space in this
Right.
bell tower.
Right.
there's none.
In this particular one here, there is none.
Get back to the same issue. I mean, you want what you want, but the resulting look is not as appealing as perhaps it could be.
I do maintain in real life, in 3D, this goes away more as opposed to getting more pronounced.
But those windows do interrupt the tower. It cuts it up, which is the form of it. If it's like this is not my favorite thing in architecture, I would just start out that way, but it has a kind of lyrical form that is used around here. But once you interrupt the sweeping form of it and the roof, the copper roof, it disrupts the whole idea of that form. I think,
Yeah.
and therefore, I mean, that's one element of busyness. If you took that out, it would look like
Thought about
completely different.
a round arched,
What is what Rob was,
Metal
what?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Have you thought about a round arched metal roof dormer?
I have. It gets a tad postmodern if one's not careful, but perhaps is the answer just to shingle the roof, and then it'll blend in better. Is that what we're struggling with? Is that we have this
Well, that would be a completely
copper
different thing,
material.
wouldn't
Change
it?
materials, but I think you're also hearing just the loss of the distinctiveness of the
No, I
bell
think it's the
form.
metal against the cedar
think?
The thing sticking out, yeah.
We could cedar it. I mean, it's easy.
Well, that would help.
Yeah, but you're still sticking with those windows.
I would,
Yeah, I would say just historically, the only way you could possibly like that with some sense would be a porthole.
it's kind of what
Is that what
you're
you were
going
saying?
Porthole
for.
window and a
Porthole.
rounded
A rounded top.
And it
with
would
the-
just be
yep.
a circle.
Yeah.
And it would punctuate that because something about the circle of that would relate more to this
with a curve.
curving thing. And one on each side, and it would sit back against, it would not project
As much as
6
these.
feet out with a ridge, but it would really sit back in. To me, a circle there would be unconventional, but it would be less of a visual disruption of that bell form.
So you're doing the little circles throughout, so 3 circles,
each
looks like a
side.
lighthouse.
Well, sort of like a
suspect
Victorian
you're talking about a
house that
roundabout
would
this
have,
size.
Around, well, okay, so this is.
Similar,
Right.
similar to the square
Yeah.
footage of that light that's there.
But
Similar.
because it would only sit off of this as high as it is, so the top of it wouldn't project 6 feet out. It would sort of sit back against the shape.
I haven't
Otherwise,
done
you
one,
would
but
have
I guess
tubes
it's,
coming.
that's a concern of mine.
Yeah, right.
It may have a big impact on the
I don't know,
heading up there.
that's unconventional, but it would be a
You lose some
better.
floor space.
And what would, and
Yes. Yes.
I think you would.
I should say, I love your work, for what it's worth. You don't know that I know that, but I know a number of your clients are good friends with Gary Garabrandt. I know they're thrilled with that house, and it gives me a lot of faith that you can build houses of this size with a lot of detailing that work. So that gives me some faith personally. I think the reason I asked about the rendering is it would be nice to see on the record here for other people who may not have visited those houses or know all of your work to see that in a little more reality and three-dimensionality and with some perspective.
Well, thank
But
you.
I still feel you're welcome. I still feel as though there's just, I mean, we're talking about this one detail. There's still a lot of detail going on. I go back to the octagon, the first floor, sort of, I'm calling it the conservatory. It's not what it is, but there's something about that to me that stands out on its own in good ways and bad ways, and it's meant to stand out. It's meant to be a feature.
well, if you didn't have the bell tower, then that wouldn't be such, these two elements.
But it's the transom, it's
Close
different
to each other.
fenestration there with the
Yeah.
transom windows and the paneling on the bottom.
I agree. What is the use of that?
It's supposed to be like an orangery space, although one will have, it's a sitting room. They're not going to grow anything in it, but it is that feeling. It's a feeling that it's supposed to be light, extra glass, and where the rest of the building has a lot of cedar going on, and that is much brighter and simpler and airy. And that was the goal, to
Well,
make it.
I feel like
But there's something very Victorian about it,
that,
It's a little bit, and
It's the
also,
roof.
actually.
It's
also
the-
a form like that would
So
typically
again,
have been
it's
on the
not-
back of the house.
It's not quite the 1880s, we're sort of back in the 1850s. So just from a style standpoint, I think that's a very typical large scale, because it's a large house, but I mean, that sort of septagonal, octagonal, whatever form with the panels below these tall windows, I mean, that's kind of a different era.
It also would have more typically been on the side or rear of the house than on the front in the middle. That's
The dining room, yeah.
Because I love the simplicity of the house at 80. And, you know, there's not a whole lot of detailing, extraneous detailing on the front of that. It seems to blend more. And I know this will blend more than you're saying, will blend more than it shows up on elevation, especially as the shingles weather. But some of the architectural forms are more distinct and fight the simplicity a little bit.
so what's,
is the chart set where the media room is? Is that, or,
You're looking at the upper level plan?
yeah.
The media room is behind it on the second floor.
So how come in the media room that you need light? I mean, you said it's habitable, but
We're on the wrong page, sorry.
That's the second floor. If you go up to the attic.
Page A15.
A15 or A13?
A15.
A15.
Sitting area.
Oh, sitting area. Okay. So the second floor is the media room.
Yes.
Okay. The third floor is the sitting area.
Well, this is
You
why
know, it's-
Suffolk County,
You know, for the sake of a sitting area, we're spending, look, they want what they want, but I think I'm finding myself agreeing with Zach. It creates a disruption in what otherwise is a nice design of a turret, and I'm not a big fan of turrets, but without those dormers, it's workable. But for the sake of a sitting area, I mean, you're going to get light in there, you know.
well,
I don't
that
know.
part is recessed.
I mean, if your client is so dead set on having a sitting area in there, God bless them. But on the other hand, it screws up what otherwise is a good design.
One will get ocean views from that room.
Yeah, I think it's more about looking out than it is about sitting.
It's inside and out.
Right.
Well,
Well, then maybe you don't need the curve. I mean, something is off.
I have to say that I think this is beautiful. I think it's complicated, I agree, and there are small things that I feel like could be changed, like the windows in the porte cochere, but I just think that it's crazy, but it's magical, and I think what you've created is something that, yes, it incorporates all these different elements, but somehow, for me, except for small changes, it comes together. I think it's lovely.
You hit on the nail on the head, though. It is a little whimsical, and that's kind of part of that's. It's hard to describe that. I can't put that in words, but it's really a feeling. And the residents across the street had that going on, as do some of these others. I mean, if you look at some of the details in this home, they're amazing. If you really look at it
This
close.
presents in such a much simpler way.
But if you look close up, this has all been painted over in white, so some of the details go away.
Well,
But
I've lived here for a gazillion years, including across the street from there, so don't.
I know everyone's very familiar with it.
Including Mrs. Cordelia Robertson,
All I'm saying is that if you
skulking
look-
around in the yard.
you know, if you look at the whimsical details and
Yes,
the
but
scrolling
you
that
have
goes on.
form after detail in this house as opposed to that one.
I would submit, if you look at the arches here, the bigger arches here,
Yes,
columns
there are
with
three of
capitals
them in
and
a
another
row
one.
that are the same, which is so different. There's no turret. I love that house.
As do I.
It's a different kind of house.
But it's a different type of house.
Well, I agree.
should be brought
Why are we
something-
comparing it then?
I think
It
we
may
soften the
be,
dome and the sitting area, something a little different with the roof, because it's looking like a sunroom more than it's looking like,
this?
yes. I think the two of those, I think it cleans it up. If you can take care of some way, somehow you can soften what we're calling the turret or the dome, and also something with regards to that front sitting room, whether it be a different roof style, just to take away from this full sunroom, almost generic looking for a very complex.
That's true.
No offense to the architect or the designer, but it's just you have such a beautiful and fun and with all due respect, handsome house. That one element just looks the least complicated, but it makes the entire flow complicated.
Well, I think
That makes
either
sense.
if you didn't have this, that wouldn't seem so bad. And if you didn't have this wouldn't seem.
Well, if this was in the back of the house, I wouldn't even
Yeah.
say anything, but
But we got, and this.
Anyone have any concerns with the deck over the porte cochere, the outdoor roof deck?
2 acres, no.
Okay.
It's
Just wanted to put on the record that we know that that's there, but it's set back from the road by 100 feet or so, and 2-acre property, and 150 feet depth to the back of the property, so no concern.
And did you see the landscape plan?
Yeah.
The entire property is hedged, and where there's a couple openings, that will all be closed.
What's the inclination?
I think Curtis summed it up nicely. That and you've given John and David a lot of credit for coming up with something that is a little cleaner and still whimsical, but a little bit cleaner. Zach seemed to have an idea about getting some alternative lighting. I don't know if that was you or Zach, but so.
I'll give Zach the credit.
Okay.
So where
I
are
don't
we?
have an ego.
Scott, I'm sorry.
So I'm feeling like if you ask us to vote now, you might not have 3 votes of support on these plans, but maybe you're close. But I don't know if is that fair to say? I don't want to speak for other people. That's what I'm sensing
I
and hearing.
couldn't say yes the way it is right
Yeah.
now. I have
I'm with
some
you.
real, it's so complicated, I don't know what, it's like something needs to be subtracted is what I really think, or even,
Cleaned up,
like there's a railing that goes up to your orangery. There's just so much activity on the front of this house and changed so many elements that I couldn't say yes to it. I don't actually mind the rest of it. Something about it, it makes me uncomfortable. I just couldn't do it. And I think the windows in that turret, whatever we're talking, the bell-shaped tower, I think ruin that, which is unfortunate. You can either have it or not have it. It's not.
Sean's gonna go back and wow us, right?
Aren't you Scott?
Yes.
This is
Okay.
Scott.
Oh, Scott did it? This is your
I don't
design?
know,
It's everyone's in there.
but his name is Scott, that's all.
Scott did a good
Team
job.
effort.
Good job.
I just
Just
think,
let him get the
is there a way to, I don't know what to say, subtract, clean up, simplify a bit?
So let me state the obvious, there's always a way.
Okay.
It's pencil and wood, we can fix anything. I will tell you that clearly the client likes this, those views, those shapes
yeah.
are important. Can we go back and do it? Of course we can.
Okay, I just,
Would we rather not? Sure, I'd rather
I
not to
hear
come see
you. I
you 2
am
weeks
sure
from now,
you
no
would,
offense.
hoping that we'd say yes, but I
taken.
don't feel comfortable saying yes tonight, the way it is.
So
Our goal is to get a yes out of you, and we'll do what we need to do within reason.
Okay, I
are you
can't,
asking for an adjournment then?
I think we should.
Do we want to, is there any public commentary?
is there any public commentary on
Meadowman.
45 Meadowmere Lane, Karen and Robert Kelly? No. So do we have a motion to
So,
accept the applicant's request?
for an adjournment,
Yeah.
so moved.
Second then.
Aye.
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 Thank you for
Do you
your
want
time.
more than
Thank
2
you.
weeks?
I beg your pardon?
Do you want more than 2 weeks? Okay,
Couple minutes.
great.
Or can it be pencil, paper, and an eraser?
We'll use an eraser this time.
Shall we give
We
you?
have 2 stamp
want
sets,
these?
which we need. Do you want those back for any reason? We're not,
We don't need them.
They're not gonna-
We'll take
Oh,
them if
wait.
you don't want them.
well, we're happy to throw them out, but we're going to throw the extras out.
You give us your garbage and we'll throw it out. I'll recycle it.
Oh, my God, don't offer that, I'll give you like a whole bunch. Never
No, not
mind.
all the village papers, just my own.
Yes, just yours?
I'll
Okay.
do my best with recycling, I should say.
Okay. Next, Kenneth and Kelly Hoyer, this is Lisa Zaloga coming to report on her chimney window situation that was held open from the last meeting. 129 Somerset Avenue, amend to prior ARB approval and remove silo. So the building plans were approved, except that you were going to look into a window by the chimney, is that right?
And the location and size of the chimney.
Right, it was the location and the size of the chimney, Lisa's logo. So I checked into it, of course, and so it has a double-sided fireplace inside that has a big flue that pretty much goes up through the center of that, and the mechanical flue goes up the
same
wrong
way.
side of the chimney. So I can't make it any smaller or closer to center than it is. I could actually make it probably more off-center if I had to, but I mean, I can't make it any more. So I did take some pictures because we had the conversation of the fact that you will be viewing it kind of obliquely, and I don't think that you will really pick up on the fact that it is that off-center just by virtue of the fact that you kind of will the thickness of the chimney will almost hide a lot of the wall that is Oh, I think I gave you all of mine. You want me to put one
Would you
on?
like one? Uh-oh, this is always a problem.
Oops.
Bad to, good
Gotta turn
work.
it into a plane.
All right, so
Oops, that's existing.
I'm not sure, I don't want to belabor this, but I'm not sure I understand why one or both of the flues couldn't have been bent and why the chimney couldn't have been 5 feet wide at the base, narrow handsomely
Well, I mean,
partway
it's
up, and then-
existing, so I would have to take it down and rebuild the whole thing.
Well, when
I-
I went by the first time, there were no bricks visible. So what do you mean it's
They,
existing?
that
3
that
weeks ago, there were
fireplace.
no bricks visible on the back there.
No, that fireplace is existing.
Yeah.
That was existing. I would have to, so I don't know if you remember, I told you that the top half of those bricks were wet, and they took them down. They took it down, I think, about 3 feet.
Right.
Because they were
Basically
going
down
to have
to the
to.
roof line. It came down to the roof line.
Okay,
The
I-
bricks that are here, visible here, were not there 3 weeks ago when I
Right,
first
so
saw
they
the
brought,
house.
because I told you they were wet. They found that they were wet inside.
Yep.
So they rebuilt those up, but that existing fireplace is there, and the flue comes up the wrong side of the double-sided fireplace that's inside. So then I would have to shift in a very small period of time. I'd have to be able to shift both of those flues over. The main flue for the double-sided fireplace, as well as the flue for the mechanical, and it's all exposed inside, so I don't really have, I don't have enough space to
What do you mean
cant
it's
it
all
that
exposed
far.
inside? I'm not sure I
open.
understand that part.
The, this little room inside here is cathedraled up to that, so that's why they didn't go any lower than that. But I would have had to take that whole thing down basically to the fireplace and try to get everything over. Because you can only, you can't just,
Well, it needs to be a 45-degree angle. You can do
Yeah.
it at a 45-degree angle.
yeah. I mean, I did look, I swear I did.
I get it. I honestly, I don't like to contradict you. I just don't believe that there wasn't a way to do it. But now the brick is constructed.
Well, I probably could have moved it over, but I could not get it centered. I could probably have moved it over, maybe a foot, but there was no way I was getting
My point
to
is,
center.
if you had gotten it over a little bit, you could have 2 flues that would come up, not the center of the chimney. You'd build the chimney out further west and maybe build the base out further west on both sides, further north. But it's fine. I don't want to belabor this. You're right that you'll see this obliquely, so it's not going to look as off-center from the street as it does in elevation. But it wasn't so much the centering, being able to see it directly from the west. It was the crowding of that window, trying to relieve some of that crowding, and trying to get the center of the chimney going up through the ridge line.
I would have been very happy if it went up to the ridge, but
Yep.
So, Rob, are you,
I think, look, it is what it is. I'm not happy with this detail. Thank you for checking. I'm not happy with this detail. I think it is pretty visible, but I think the house is getting a big improvement. And it needed some love and attention, and it's getting love and attention from the owners and from Lisa, so it's not something that would make me change my mind about an approval in any way. I'm comfortable with it.
everyone
I
else
appreciate
okay with
coming
this?
back.
Yep.
So how do I do this? We already approved the building plans.
Then if this was the condition subsequent, you just need to,
But
re-
you said you
I
didn't
couldn't sign
you didn't
it
sign
because
them.
I had to wait for this to happen.
well,
Right.
then, just
So-
make
so I
a
think you-
resolution that the submission has been made.
Okay.
You approve the submission and reaffirm the approval of the plans.
Okay, so moved. Can we do that? It's getting
Second.
late.
Second? Aye?
Aye.
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 Sorry to make
Great.
Thank you, I'm sorry, thank you.
Goodbye, Silo. Hello, House. Next, public hearings historic. Number 1 has been adjourned, Carol Welsh, until, the guy, is there a letter? I thought
This would be a new adjournment. It was adjourned to tonight. So
the lawyer came in and brought something in. I was there.
that may be, I just don't have it.
Is there a letter requesting an adjournment in the file?
Let me find it.
There,
I'm
that
sorry that
lawyer
I'm
came
sorry
in.
they keep referring to these in the building department as adjourned as opposed to a request for adjournment.
Right. So there is a letter dated today, received today, requesting adjournment until the April 22nd hearing.
Motion to approve the applicant's request for adjournment.
Can I just discuss for a little bit? This is now the third time this has been delayed with less than 24 hours' notice. And I read the file every time. I spend an hour, 45 minutes to an hour reviewing the...
It's inconsiderate, Rob.
So the lawyer came and said to me that they were considering new options, which I thought was a step in the right direction, so I don't want to deter them, actually.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
you're a board. You have to be resilient to these issues regardless of how
All
it
right,
can
why
be.
would, you could not read it until they show up and then have to go to the next meeting and put the burden of the
Somebody could have
time on
shown up.
them.
Yeah, somebody
As
could have-
opposed to having us to work over and over again. That's how I have been dealing with these things.
That's a good idea.
It's there, since they don't have the wherewithal to bring in anything in a timely fashion, it's not up to us to hustle, to try to figure out what the, at the last minute. We have lots of things to do at the last minute. We had training today on top of it all. Motion to approve the letter requesting adjournment for Carol Welsh, 340 Hill Street until 4/22/19.
Second.
Aye.
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 Great. People are getting slow here. The next thing's adjourned. Do I have to say that? No? Next, BLC Hillside Investment LLC, 132 South Main Street, amend a prior ARB decision. Your name, please?
Ray Booth with McAlpin. I'll give this to you. Thank you. And I have extra copies for everybody.
Is this different from what's in the file?
No, it's all the same.
Okay.
I'm going to pass those to, yeah, just so everybody has a copy.
That stands.
Here, why don't we keep this stamp on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Zach, do you have a copy?
Yeah.
Here, go ahead.
But I don't,
I saw it in the file, but that's okay. Curtis and I can see it.
Got it. That makes sense.
We've added some perspectives that we thought might clarify some of the elevations from the previous concerns. If you wanted to look at page 11, that might give us a good start at all of your previous concerns.
was this in the file?
Yeah.
It was.
Just came in last night.
Well, this doesn't clear up any concern. Okay, let's go back to this.
Go back.
Let's go back to the plans here, because this is
Approve
just a
proposed.
pretty picture.
I'm sorry?
Approve to propose.
Yes,
Show us what was
we'd like to go over your, and there are no changes. This is just a,
The changes are in the elevations. The plans, there are no changes to the plans.
so what does that mean?
What's the blue line then?
Okay, I'm sorry. The blue line is the current plan for the house, what we're proposing. Sure. We're proposing, the amendment to the original approval is the blue line. The red line is what the previous
But, so
submission
I'm
was.
confused, because this was previously approved, the red?
red, correct.
So what is this out here, this gray stuff?
That was a roof line that came out previously that we've actually pulled back.
Was it
from the
approved?
north elevation.
So
It was
that's what's
approved.
confusing to me. Is that still part of your plan? New porch? Well, I'm on page 3.
I'm sorry, the shaded area is the previous roof line.
Which was approved or not?
It was approved.
So on page 3, you want to extend this out even more?
Which, the deck on the south side?
No, I think this is internal space now, is that correct?
The blue is internal space,
Yeah,
yes,
so
ma'am.
they've got a pantry, and they've got something that comes out to where there's a window well. That was the back kitchen, whatever that means.
So the blue is the proposed changes?
Yes, ma'am, to the plan,
To the
correct.
interior space.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's the little.
And the gray is the floor plan.
If you go to page 4, you go to your comparisons.
I see.
Thank you.
Let's go over your comparisons. What are you proposing?
Okay, so some of the concerns that we had on page 4 were the size of the window well, the window protrusion. So we reduced the scale of that, as you had some concerns. We also thought we would cover it in cedar shake for the roof instead of the metal, which would meld it more with the facade of the house. We reduced the size of the dormer, which is over that.
And brought it down.
Brought it down, yes, sir, just to try and get our head height in there.
Wait. Was there a dormer? As far as I'm concerned,
There was a larger dormer that you guys had objected to the scale.
Not on what was approved, but what they came to last time with us.
but there's nothing on this.
That was the approved.
Oh, okay, well, I'd like to,
So we're,
He's responding to the criticisms we had on
one
the
of these sitting
previous,
here.
now they've still
amendment.
put in a dormer.
but it's much lower.
We dropped it.
Nevertheless, that's not from the approved plan has no dormer. Just-
Correct.
Correct? Okay, just want to get it straight.
As we developed the stair, we needed the head height to get, so that dormer was a solution to that.
This doesn't. The smaller bay window does, but then there was a porch.
There was a porch on the, it shows most on page 6.
But you've removed the porch?
So we removed the porch. There was a built-out kind of
Oh,
knuckle
you're looking at
that
two
you had
different-
objected to.
You're looking at two different things. Susan, I think you're looking at the porch that's on the
Yes.
east end of the north facade.
That's correct.
Sorry.
That-
This.
Yes. So, I'm sorry, you're on page,
Page
back
4?
on page.
We're back at 4.
Thank
So
you.
you got rid of that and covered it up and extended the porch again.
So, to clarify, this was an entrance, and this roof protruded out further to the north. We have pulled that roof back and instead done a side entrance.
It's not as long.
It's not as long,
But it's
indeed.
covered, right?
It's covered on the side, yes, ma'am.
So to me, it presents long. A porch that just comes off the ground is very different from something with a roof.
I think it would.
But you've also are proposing to eliminate the other staircase further to the west on that north facade.
Correct. It actually kind of nestles into that side a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's better.
That's where that sort of modern pair of windows is.
Yes, sir.
Presently.
Yes, sir. This was original, or this, I'm sorry, is original. We went back to what was original, what's
understand.
existing, not that it's original to the house.
Got it.
Excuse me, could you just tell me where you are? What are we talking about?
Okay. We're saying that presently, the existing house, before any work,
Oh, has
has
those
this-
windows.
and this was
Then they added the,
proposed. Now we're recreating
the
the
old,
look of the
the actual,
Just leaving it as it is.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Which I think has the effect of making that form feel more intact and original to me, the way I look at that, which is a good.
Keeping the, as it is presently.
Even though it's not the original windows, but
Right.
it's still.
Right.
It does have
Keeping
more
them
of a
as windows.
conformity. It's less broken up, right?
Right.
And less fussy. But I object to the more you cover up these, this is the thing that I thought I approved on the front, where the porch was extended and the roof of the porch was extended, and I regret that, because it changes the length and the presenting front. Yes, on the south.
On the south side?
Yes.
Susan, this is an amazing thing to try and follow. We have an original house, an original approval, an amendment to the approval and changes to the amendment on 4 different facades, and everybody's pointing to a drawing thinking that I can understand this.
Oh, okay.
Can we talk about
I said
facades
south.
and items on the house described, not just pointing to
I
things
thought-
which you can't follow?
What's the south part of the front porch?
Are we talking about the south facade now?
Facade.
No, we're talking about,
The elevations are in the lower right corner on each one, so which one are you looking at?
Which,
I wasn't looking at it, I was remembering, because I objected to the elongation of the south elevation.
right, south elevation.
Is that the front?
That
No.
is the south.
Side.
Sorry,
The right side as you face it from the street,
yeah.
the south elevation.
Okay, so we had approved
There was a larger porch
proposed roof
there.
over previously approved uncovered porch. We approved, is that correct?
Correct.
That's what's at the top.
Top.
Yep. Top of that sheet.
So you
Want a
brought
copy
the
of this?
porch in and you covered it.
So, last submittal, last time I was here, we had a larger porch there that we have removed. And if you would allow me to show perspective on page 11, it shows the line of the existing porch, which is where it is
What facade
presently.
are we talking about?
This is the south facade, I'm sorry. And we have removed that porch in an effort to not make the house look as long. There was concern about it being as long.
That was my regret, yes.
So we brought that back so that there's a little more modulation, a little more shadow play to that. On the,
You said it was removed and now it's brought back?
Just in the plan, not on the actual building, is that right?
I think
Right,
he means
just-
brought back the roof line.
has been pulled
Recessed.
back.
Recessed.
Recessed.
Not
sure.
bring back.
Okay,
Okay.
It's gone. It's not bring back, it's recessed.
okay.
Okay. So that was an effort to react to the board's comments last time we were here.
But
And
on-
also on that elevation, if I could point out, we reduced the scale of the dormer there, was a
But you
concern
s-
of the board.
On the south elevation.
On the south elevation, correct?
which dormer? Didn't you add these? How many dormers were originally there?
Well,
None.
yes, there were. There were 3 original dormers. As we've extended the house, we've added dormers on the south face and on the north face, but there were always 3
And
dormers.
you slightly relocated the middle, or the westernmost dormer on the south facade,
Yes.
which is
Wasn't
what you
that
had
a
also
bank of 3
proposed.
windows? Wasn't that larger?
Well,
It was larger, correct, yes, sir. Last time we visited, it was a larger,
Because we
and
were
you felt
talking
it was out of
generally about
scale.
windows in
Correct,
general.
correct.
And that centered, now 2-window dormer was proposed as 3.
Correct.
And this is now made smaller to be comparable
match.
to the other one.
What was more existing on the house, a smaller scale
And I think we
dormer.
were also talking about the fact that on the first floor, on the south facade, there was this continuous placement of large windows that stretched across the entire length on that story, which gave it this sort of Victorian hotel look
Right,
to it. But
And we
you've
removed a bank of those, yes,
You've removed
sir.
some of them.
So-
But here, I just want to compare
Yeah.
that to your perspective on page 11, which is looking back to the north and west at that. And I'm not seeing as many windows in that drawing as there are in the elevation. And I think that perspective shows it closer to, in other words, if you look at what would correspond to the front block of the house, which is closest to the street, in the proposed drawing, there are 2 sets of paired windows toward the front, and in your
proposed,
perspective, there's only 1. So I think this.
Yes, yes.
This
So
one
we're
does
talking
not
about
appear.
this
That one
window,
doesn't appear.
correct.
And
Our client had wanted to proceed with that window if the board would accept it in lieu of removing on the north face the door that we had added in the original submittal.
Well, I think just
can
getting
we-
back to the too many windows idea is that additional pair, which as approved, it doesn't exist. There's
Correct.
just a pair of sort of French door windows. And then, as amended, you're asking for a second set. And I just feel that that contributes to this sense on that first floor of there being this continuous run of windows.
Does it help
This
that
is
it's in
more
the
successful.
modulation of the columns? And it's not just a bank of windows?
No, I think it's just too, I don't know, visually, it just seems like that many windows seems to accentuate the length of the house.
It's also funny to me that on that facade, there's not anything but French doors, that there's not a hip height window in there. Can I just say?
That is just for access to the porch, which was,
You've got other door, I mean, I'm just saying, on that whole facade on the first floor, there's not really what you would consider a traditional window, other than the one at the very front, I guess. But I think you've been really responsive, which I appreciate.
we were trying to be.
I think, and I think not only responsive, but I think, to me, largely successful. We can quibble about the dormer on the north side, the dormer you're proposing to add on the north facade. You need head height over a staircase. Whether you actually need it or not, I don't know. There's not one there currently. But by bringing the rest of that down and removing the paneling effect of that window
Bigger
underneath
window. It helped it a lot.
To me, that helps a lot. I appreciate
agree.
that the north side is simplified with fewer staircases. I think that, to me, is a net positive. And I know that you are still looking for some additional covered porch off the very back on the south facade, on the eastern end of the south facade. But essentially what you're doing is creating, it looks to me, is creating a sort of a hip roof off of the back of the larger roof of the covered porch. And that extends over that sort of glassed-in area, but then back to the back porch. And I think it does break up that line.
And to your concerns, which we did listen to, as if the hedges were not there. I did go today to the site, and I stood in that corner, peered through the bushes, I was not arrested, and went to the other side and
Here.
stood in the yard and really kind of looked. And with that angle, with this porch that we're putting on the east, I really don't think you will see it. So
Well, I appreciate the changes. I like the sort of what I call the veranda form that was on that southeast corner of the porch being removed. I think it's more successful. You still have a lot of covered space under that porch.
yes, sir.
But the one remaining comment to me, and I'm not trying to be greedy here, but I agree with Zach's comment on that extra pair of French doors on the first floor. There's an awful lot of French doors along there already. And not only would I not like to see another pair, I'd actually like to see a window somewhere along there.
And I say, because our client really wanted to have those windows. I represented to him your concerns. He said if it's the French doors, give them up. So
Well,
he's willing to
For my
acquiesce
sake,
to
I'll just
that.
finish by saying if that door is removed, and especially if it's replaced with a window, you would have my support on these plans.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the response.
I appreciate the concerns.
I'm confused, I'm sorry. This was approved,
Yes, ma'am.
and you're proposing to cover a shorter, I can't read
The
this.
roof goes in, if you look at the east facade, Susan, it's probably, or that maybe the perspective
No,
on
I'm
page
looking at the
11.
front, and I need to keep looking, because it says proposed uncovered corner porch.
Look at
Where is the
page 10.
uncovered?
Look at page 10. So see that the maybe 10-foot expanse of roof over the porch on the south side
Oh,
stops.
got cut out, good.
And
Right,
and it's
right.
really just a hip roof that covers the glass that's there and then
Okay,
extends
that's
to the back
better.
porch.
Because it
Broke the scale
stops
down.
that long railroad,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Are you on there, Zach? All right,
I
as
think
far
that's
as,
a
are we,
big improvement.
I'm sorry, and we're talking about, I personally just would like to go back to where we came from, up here. I think it's more symmetrical with with the plain spaces between these doors,
I
so
don't,
that there's relief from the fenestration, which was one of our concerns, was excessive fenestration, which I can understand because there was so much of it. As for the going back, So the covered porch, what were you maintained so proposed roof, previously approved uncovered porch. To me, there's a huge difference between a covered porch and an uncovered porch in terms of how the facade presents in terms of length, which is what was shown on your south facade in the front. And so what is the point of having that covered?
It allows them to come out of the car, get to the door, be undercover, and that was just a covered entry. That's their family entry. That's where they're going to come from the beach, and it gives them...
And this, where there was an entrance, that you've now...
Windows, correct.
That sticks out those, right? Zach, do you have a problem with that?
Are we talking about the
No, we're on,
south?
Page 4, I believe, on the...
That
we're on
word.
page 4.
I'm sorry, I was still on.
So what was, there
Yeah.
was a porch, now it's 3 windows and something, and something that comes out a bit. So that the
There's a-
facade, this whole length, there's something that sticks out, which is sometimes not historic.
You know, I'm trying to see in the rendering how that sort of works. It's easier to, so page 9, the northeast
Right.
perspective.
So they've come out, and then they've had this porch. See, I don't like that.
It just juts out in some little, what is that?
What's the plinth next to it, sort of, or the?
I think that's what Ms. Stevenson is referring to. So there is
Yeah.
two
Called a planter.
windows, there are 2 windows that are below that, so it was to keep people from falling in a well there.
Oh,
So
there are
there's a cellar below.
cellar windows down there.
Correct.
So that's
That
the,
keeps you from falling.
that's the window well.
It's the window well, correct. It could be handled by a railing
A
if that
railing.
perhaps was more,
Yeah.
But I also am asking Zach, because they've pushed out
Yeah,
the wall,
at the corner.
which we've had other issues at other historic houses, that when you start doing that, do you have a problem with that?
Well, I think that's simpler
Than the
visually than
X-
what had been approved
Well, that was,
previously, which you see on page 4 on the top,
Yeah.
which is that columned
that
porch,
porchy thing.
you know, all that.
All right.
And they also calmed down that bay window with all the panelization.
No, I agree. The calm down bay window is an
Yeah, I
improvement.
think it's better.
All right.
What was it?
One other
So
thing.
do you have any other concerns, Zach? Because I'm
I
trusting
think
you
you-
on this, because I thought your
Prefer.
comments were really good the last time and really to
No,
the
I
point.
think by removing 2 things,
The porch,
removing that extra pair of windows, getting back to what had been accepted.
yeah, the sort of smooth,
But you've also, I
Ultimately,
noticed you've pulled the porch as approved, has been pulled
back.
Right.
toward the front of the house
Yes, sir.
by about 2 feet, because now that end column aligns with the window above it, whereas formerly it was about 2 feet further. So that's been brought back. And then this porch roof is pushed toward the house.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't read that way here so much, but it actually is. So I think that's,
Mm-hmm. so
excuse me, that's
it
successful. It's
reduces
just
that
extra window.
appearance of length
Yes.
and
It
rapid,
breaks it,
right, because that was my regret
which I
there.
think is a good
Okay,
choice.
anybody else?
I actually want to put Zach's brain. I'm just noticing the mullion patterns on the first floor windows on the north facade. It's the only place where you introduce the sort of arts and crafts plaid window mullions on the first floor. Is there a reason for that?
I'm sorry, where are you looking
From
on
the
that?
north
On page
facade,
4.
the western end, page 4. So you're
I'm
taking
sorry,
that.
you're referring to these.
So, yeah, and the first floor windows in particular, the 2 single ones, the 3 is a triplet, and then the one in the next form back, you've gone from, 6 over 6s
6.
to,
3,000
the
over.
only place on the house where those plaid mullions are on the first floor. Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's a mistake in our drawing.
That's
because
what I'm wondering,
they
too.
are all over the place on this house.
Okay.
There's so many.
I'm
And we
wondering
do
that
have
as well.
photographs on the back here. I wish my eyes were better. I wish
my
the photographs
glasses?
were
It
better.
has it in the rendering too, but,
There's something a little inconsistent about the 6/6s on the first floor, but that's a chunk of the house that was added.
We're not going to
Early
change
on.
that, is
Right, so you're going to keep whatever is
We're
there
gonna keep
and then
whatever's there.
repeat it.
right.
So, because those decorative upper sashes are very kind of Queen Anne, that's kind of a signature
yeah.
sash type for the 1880s. But what they did whenever they built that big addition, whatever they did there was they recycled some older windows, they introduced some.
Yeah.
So, but if you just stick as close to what's there and just keep that going, whichever that is.
That's been our goal.
Would be the best, yeah.
Exhausting.
Thank you for,
He travels from Nashville. Think how exhausting that is.
from High Point, North Carolina this trip.
Oh, okay, all right.
To be honest.
That's why I'm going from North Carolina
Yeah?
for Easter.
Are there any other, have we gone over the
House.
changes?
Like any
I'm
house.
sorry.
Have we covered all these changes?
I just want to make sure I had all your comments. That is all of the comments that I think we had from last.
How many were there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
How many you got? Oh,
I think this is a big improvement. The things that stick out to me are, as I said, that extra pair of French doors on the south facade, and this well in brick. I would prefer to see it, I think, in a railing.
Some sort of a railing.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
looks-
that's
Something maybe
just
not-
So,
ugly.
Blocky.
so that I understand, there was never any window well there before.
No, there wasn't a basement.
So now you're creating a basement.
We're creating it, yes.
So that's what they're giving up the front entryway to create for the creation of the
Yeah.
basement. Which additional living space is that accounted for in terms?
It is.
Having that brick project out from the shingles doesn't feel right, so if the brick
Easily.
can stop at
Yeah.
the wall and then
Yeah.
railing.
Emulate some other railing type that you,
Probably just what's on the porch, although that's not by code
Well,
anymore. It's low.
might have
But we'll
to-
make it.
you might have to
code
do
higher.
it to code, you know.
No, we'll certainly do it to code.
So let me ask you this logistically. I personally am comfortable with this, subject to those 2 or 3 changes. I wouldn't want to make someone travel a great distance to come back to
Right,
represent
he
it.
can mark the plans. You're the architect, is that correct?
Yes, we are.
He could write on the plans.
That'd
Couldn't
be
he?
great.
So what are the marks we're asking him to make?
I have no idea.
Okay, so I think I do. Let me try
He
and
might.
Zach.
kind of
He
a
might.
balloon,
Yeah.
some sort of a balloon, which,
The window
around-
well?
As originally approved.
Right.
or
I think
something.
we're asking about the following. One is to not add that second, the
Right,
additional
go
set
back.
of French doors on the south facade.
So he could,
Okay,
okay,
that's
so you
number
need
one.
to, do we have a stamped plan? He's
That's
gonna
number
have to
one.
go out and do it.
Yeah.
that's
Number one.
one.
Number 2 is to change the wall around that well to a railing. Should we say similar in style to the railing on the roof? Is that, or similar
Or
to
the
the style of
porch.
the
I
railing?
would
on
probably
the
say
porch?
the porch.
That's the porch railing.
That's
That's
right.
number 2. Number 3 would just be to make a note saying that the intent on the windows on the north facade is to keep in place what's in place.
Agreed.
And am I missing one other? Does
I think that's,
that cover it?
I think it does.
We agreed to the bay window, we agreed to the pantry.
So if you could,
Where's the
the
stamped copy he needs to write on? On both of them, right?
Well, I'm trying to find the stamped copy of plans that were submitted for tonight, and I cannot
This
find
wouldn't
them.
be them. They look
Might be in the
awful
back.
familiar,
Thank
but
you for,
Oh, yeah, they were out.
is that
Okay.
them?
well, this is not a full set of plans, though. Was there a full, this was, you're right, this is what was in there, but it was one set. What do we do about
Wait,
that?
his
Do
one.
one set, you can send the other one along.
So it's, is it essentially
Wait,
exactly the
maybe
same?
this is it.
Well-
This is from April 4th.
Yeah, yeah. So this is,
So this has
and
got-
this is April 5th.
That's no good. Today's the 8th. Where are the ones from,
Well, this is what we just discussed, though. This is exactly what we just discussed. So let's take these two sets.
And these are okay.
If you could just make those
Those
three notes.
amendments, yes, sir.
Can she stamp a second one? Are those both stamped?
Yes, they're both stamped.
So why don't you, can we
Make a
move this
motion.
meeting
Move ahead.
along? He can
Okay.
go outside.
Okay,
So come-
take it to the
motion
side.
to
got it.
approve, no, motion to close for written decision, BLC Hillside Investments LLC, 132 South Main Street, with 4, is that correct?
Three
Three
amendments.
corrections by architect to the plans that had been submitted to the building department.
All seconds.
To the file.
Aye.
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 Thank you, folks.
And so you're going to go out there and mark
Be
them
right
up
back.
and bring them right back.
Great, thank you.
Next, Passfield Hall Partners LLC, 139 South Main Street, demolition of existing dwelling.
Good evening.
Hi.
Mary Jane Assato, Burke Flanagan Assato, 21 South Main Street for the applicant. The application before you is to demolish a building at 139 South Main Street. The property is in the historic district, however, this building is not listed as a contributing property. The history of the property is at one point it was 2 separate accessory buildings and connected in 1987, got approval for the 2 accessory buildings to be connected and expanded. And then subsequently in 1995, there was a further expansion and renovation done. Both of these required Board of Appeals variances. The building that is there now, therefore, is substantially in both in use and in form different than what was there before when it was accessory building. You can't see this building from the street. It's nearly, because of the extensive screening. Moreover, it's a flag lot, and the other houses that are adjoining it basically block visibility. So you can't see it now, and certainly after demolition. The fact that it's gone, I don't think you're going to be aware of the situation there. There is no proposed building at this time for this property, although obviously if and when that time comes, you'll be reviewing it. The existing building is grossly non-conforming. I believe it's at one point of the, it's 1.4 to 1.6 feet from the property line. So that is certainly going away. It's from the south property line. I mean, it's right there. It was part of the building. The accessory buildings were accessory to the buildings, the brick building, but since the subdivision in the 1980s, it's been separated from there. Overall, I mean, it was subdivided in the 90s by the Wright family. We respectfully submit that because of the foregoing reasons, that it will not be a change in the character of the neighborhood or a loss of any significance. It's been a long night for you, and I believe that you have another case coming before you. So if you have specific questions, I'll address them. Otherwise...
No, I thought, actually, you can't even see it from Lake Agawam. I tried from every angle, and I couldn't. I did find 3 deer back there who come over to my house when they're finished over there at Passfield Hall. I actually agreed with your application, and I'm in favor of it. It just is.
No.
I mean, okay. Anybody else?
Any public comments?
No, I
Do you have enough to write your written decision, Paul?
Their brief is pretty thorough.
Yes.
My partner usually is.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion that we close for written decision by council the application for Passfield Hall Partners at 139 South Main Street.
Second?
Aye.
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 Aye. Next, I thought, is Beechwood, well,
Yes.
are we hearing Beechwood?
Yes. Yes, this is
This is
the
109,
Terry
the
Cottage.
Terry.
Oh, but there was an issue.
It's 101.
That'll be resolved on 101. That's 101, not 101.
I misunderstood. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Steven Sanabria for Fleetwood McMullen Architects in 251 Panago Road, East Hampton, New York. I'm here for Beechwood Latch LLC regarding 109 Hill Street, the Terry Cottage. I have small sets of the big sets that were
they're
submitted, if you'd
enormous.
like to see them, just to kind of hand, they're exactly what was
Yes, but
submitted.
it's so big, we can't handle it.
Right, so
Please pass them
would
out.
you like a copy for everyone?
Could you have her stamp them, please? So I had asked, I don't think we had a plan for the existing, I can't remember this anymore. What's there now? You just had your plans. Do we have those to compare with? Do you have
I'm sorry, what was that?
the existing conditions?
Yeah, the existing conditions are in the package, yep.
Okay.
So the Terry Cottage was built approximately in 1915. We do have an ARB, or pending ARB demo approval from the ARB. A demo permit.
For those structures in
For
the
the
back.
structures in the back.
cabanas and the
Oh, yes, there's some contentious
court,
something. Okay, that's fine.
pool.
The Terry Cottage is painted wood shingle, painted white trim, dark shutters. The existing square footage is 5754. There are currently 10 bedrooms in that cottage. We're proposing to renovate the existing building after removing that section of the back of, there was an appendage that was really decrepit, and so we're removing that section of the addition that was done to the Terry Cottage. We are reducing the square footage by about 355 square feet.
When was the addition done?
The addition,
Which, I mean, there are many additions. Are you talking about the back extension? The back that goes to the north?
Yeah.
The-
correct, to the north. So it would be this section here.
That sort of long, flat roof?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was like a shed that,
Yeah,
Very north of the building.
all the way to the back, north. Right.
so we are reducing the square footage by about 355 square feet. We're also bringing down the number of bedrooms to 5. The windows will be all wood, insulated glass windows. The siding we are going to go with again.
Excuse me, sir, what does that mean? Are you replacing the windows, or
We are,
you
replacing the windows.
you need to tell us
proposing-
that? You need to tell us that.
We're proposing to replace the windows, all of them,
With wood material.
with wood
wooden
material windows, yeah,
Very
and
nice.
insulated glass, wood muntins, as shown in the drawings,
Which
with different
are
divided lights.
6/6, is that it?
4/4
Four.
mostly.
4/4, I'm sorry, thank you.
The siding will be also replaced with wood shingle painted white, as it is now. We are also going to keep the trim white. We are trying to and will be salvaging and restoring as much as the trim. There are some trim columns on the outside that we are going to salvage and restore those and put them back in place. The trim will be all painted white. The moldings will be saved or copied.
You're reducing the square footage because you're converting them into garages?
We're converting into garages, and we're also removing this section of the back.
In the back.
Yes, sir.
On the DIM2, what is this? I don't see that it's,
It's just the
is
building
this
department.
the proposed?
The building department had requested that we have an elevation with the dimension.
No, I'm just, oh, okay.
So it's
but
a
this
front
is
elevation
the
with-
proposed, is
It
that
is, yes.
correct? 'Cause I can't-
I just asked us to show a dimension on the drawing, so that's what that drawing is for.
What is the roof material?
The roof material, I'm sorry, will be wood shingle.
And the chimneys? Dutch something?
Danish blend.
Yeah, Danish
Glengarry
blend, my
brick.
favorite. So,
It's a little hard to flip back and forth.
That's why you
yeah, it's
unstrap
close
it.
to
That's why.
impossible at the
I'm
end
only
of the
thinking,
night.
And
if existing and proposed, like this way.
Yeah.
there's the addition of a
Kinda hard
chimney
to
too,
flip,
Back and
right?
forth.
that shows a little bit of a delay. You guys live with
No.
this every day.
No problem, understood. Whatever we can do, the next one.
Also, a chimney went missing, and is that,
There
Or
are
two.
there's these little chimneys up here
okay, I'm not referring, okay, there are two chimneys
on either side.
in the front block of the house,
Proposed, and this is the existing?
but then there are two
Existing?
toward the back,
This
and
and this.
they went missing.
They were removed.
Yeah.
Which
All
chimneys
four
were
of them?
removed? I'm
Zach?
sorry.
Right, so if you're looking at sheet DES9, which is the existing elevations, you see at
Yeah.
the top that you see the two
I'm confused.
chimneys that
Yes.
rise up from the hipped front
the
section
rear.
of the building. But the lower side elevation shows two chimneys
Yeah.
On the right, on
back
the north
portion
side.
of the house.
Yep.
And one,
North. And
Slide glass doors.
those
Yeah.
are, those
like any
each
of
get
that.
removed.
All this is
The
proposed.
newer, they
That would be this one here.
in the way, well, that's the one, and then the other one is
I don't like
within
the
the,
proposed.
within the
Inside of
house.
it,
If you
right.
go
Versus that?
to
Well, because
Sheet.
what's real? Zach.
DIM2, you see that those have been removed. It's just that,
I'm sorry. I
Okay.
can't even find DIM2 because DIMs aren't consecutively numbered. Where is DIM2?
so if you go from DES9,
Yes, 9, yes.
DIM2 is 2 sheets later.
You're joking.
Okay, thank you.
So
And that's
this,
the comparable
DIM4.
before and after,
so this is the proposed.
the black.
So all these windows are different on the, right? How many windows have been added?
Well, the way it's represented is that all these sashes have been replaced with 1/1s, is that true? I'm not.
Currently, no. Currently, no. They're not. They're not 1/1s. That's the existing. They are. There's actually a mix of them. There's 6/6. There's 4/4.
Yeah, I thought they were 6/6.
Yeah.
So, and I think the point of that is that this is a very complicated building and it's late, we don't need to go into it, but there are actually two separate houses. There's a Victorian house at the back, which appears to occupy its original site. And in the colonial revival, let's say 1915-20, a new house is built in front. And so this is colonial revival. So the 6/6 sashes, of which there are some, I think, are the original type. So they exist. And so they should, in terms of preserving the house and its style, and the period of that major addition, that type could or should, I would suggest, be emulated to the new renovation, not with 4/4s, which is a whole new concept, but rather stick to what is appropriate to the colonial revival period, which is that building, which is 6/6. And I think quite a few of them still survive. So I think it's important to get the details of what is there right.
Definitely do an
And
inventory.
then we can look to see what you're proposing. So if we had the 6/6s on that existing house right there, and then we can look at, we're going to change the
Oh,
section.
so you're saying this existing is not accurate?
I believe not.
The window, yeah.
I didn't inspect, and some of these are
Okay.
storm windows, there's, you can't see anything.
Photograph?
All right,
But I
so,
believe, I don't think that's the correct sash type. So we'd have to look at those details. I think
You have photos?
right, there are photos in the back of it.
there are some, but they're
It's hard to read. We actually need,
Well, the dormers are 6/6, I can tell you that.
Yes,
Very hard
yes.
to do.
yeah, this is so complicated, and then if it's not accurate, it's difficult to
So
talk
is
about.
This says existing elevation.
Right,
It says
but
front
Zach's,
elevation, is this proposed?
evidently, that's what I asked before.
And then
So
flipping back.
Zach's saying that the fenestration on the existing is not
Yeah.
correct.
Well, it's kind of, I think it's just been greatly simplified, so it's not showing that.
So is there a way to come back and show us the existing and the proposed on the same page, one on top of the other,
Absolutely.
and an accurate, this isn't that big a project, this part, and accurately? How's that?
Okay. Absolutely.
Would that be possible? Is that what, Zach, are we on the same page?
And if you can mark what's, I don't know, either what's being salvaged, somehow highlight what's truly historic and what's being salvaged.
Well,
I mean,
he's
is
gonna
that-
have, here's our historic.
And then when we were flipping back and forth, maybe it's because they weren't drawn, it looked like chimneys were appearing or disappearing,
There's three
Are they?
chimneys on the
They are.
proposed.
Well, they're not disappearing. They're being removed.
they're being moved.
There are three chimneys
Removed.
on the
Okay,
proposed.
but then it looks, on one of the slides, it looks like a third chimney appeared.
1, 2, 3, 4.
On DIM2, I think the proposed shows 3 chimneys.
Is that there?
Well, there is, in addition to the removal of the two chimneys to the back or north of the house, there is also a design for a new chimney to be built.
Yes.
Oh, so that's why we're seeing the third chimney.
west
Yeah,
facade.
okay, right.
So we went from
These are
4 to
Yeah.
3, but it's complicated.
No. There's actually 4 chimneys in the main house.
There are 2 pairs.
No, right. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then 5, 6. So there's 6, we're going from 6 to 5.
Yeah.
Well,
Total.
then let me ask you, Zach, a question on an historic basis. If Stephen adds a chimney to the west, with presumably, it looks like, brickwork on the outside of the house,
Right.
it would seem to me, not being a historian, but it would seem to me that that would be contrary
Yes.
to the historic
Yeah.
design of the house, which houses at that time did not have, so.
See, this detail of a substantial brick chimney, which is sort of projecting out proud of the wall itself so that you can see the brickwork entirely, has become a kind of a customary, kind of newish detail.
Yeah.
We would never see that in a house of this period.
Yeah.
And since you're not dealing with new construction, you're dealing with preserving as much as can
Right,
possibly
right.
be. That really, that's a problematic element. But again, we're not seeing it on the same page. So
Right.
you're not
Can I-
seeing it for what it is.
Is this property going to be sold separately as a single-family home?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be operated as part of the condominium?
Oh,
It's going to be a separate home, but it'll have rights to the common area of the condominium, so the
Oh,
clubhouse,
is
the
it-
swimming pool.
Okay. So given that, and given that these two properties are identified with each other, I get it's a separate tax lot, but
Right.
I'm also having a hard time looking at this without understanding what's going on next door. And I know we've had this on another recent application, but it was really hard to see those other two properties at the same time from the public right-of-way. Here, you can't miss them, and people have known for a long time they operate together. They're right close to the road.
Right.
And if they're going to have some rights and there's going to be some commingling of the activities on these sites, I would prefer to see everything together. It's
Well-
just, either that, or here's the concern, whatever we come up with on this property may set a precedent that you'll have to respond to and recreate on the other one for purpose of compatibility.
Understood.
Which would be your risk.
I think we are on the agenda for the next meeting with that property
other
also,
property.
so
You know-
it sounds like you'll be looking at both of them at the same night.
I think it's useful to look at everything and where it fits in, but in this particular case, in this particular house, it's pretty simple. It's an historic house, it's a contributing asset, it's very historic. It's not the oldest house in the village, but it's very historic on Main Street, and it's very simple for me, protect and preserve. So I don't need to see it in the context of everything. I want to get I'd like to see that house kept as intact as it possibly can, as true to its original design as it historically can be. And I don't see the chimney as fulfilling that, whatever the use may be, whether it be a single-family house or whatever your use is, it matters not. It's preserving the history of that house.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we want to keep the existing chimneys, but are there any chimneys on the house that are ad hoc additions that you would want removed?
Well, I don't think we want to focus on
Well,
a
right,
particular chimney, and I think.
I was making a
Jeff's
general
point-
comment.
Okay.
In other words, if the existing house were rendered with the detailing that it presently has, and I think what you have here is a good start, but it's a little stylized in terms of the existing. Stylized to the point where we're just going to kind of move through to a new design. So if you really drew the existing, then the board could see what you're actually proposing that is in fact new. New sashes, a new chimney, whatever those details may be. So I would say try to get those existing conditions not as stylized as they presently are, and simplified, because you can't really read the detail from that. So you don't know what you're trying to preserve.
And so we'll put our proposed elevation on the same page as the existing
Yeah, that would
elevation,
be
same
super.
direction.
That
Would you
way
also
you
like a photograph on
read
that
it.
page?
Any detail that you really can't see all that well, perhaps at this scale, if you also had a photograph, would be very helpful.
You know what else would be helpful would be two things, in my opinion. One is labeling, not just side or rear, but if you could put the direction on it, southwest, northeast, on each of the elevations.
All right.
Would be helpful. And there was one other thing, I've got my notes here. Oh, if you wouldn't mind calling out bubbling or something, the specific changes. You know, you don't need to if it's new materials replacing the roof and the siding, but relocated window, new chimney, whatever it might be, that's extremely helpful. I mean,
With either color or,
yeah, like a red bubble if you can do it,
We need to
or a
see
dashed
existing
bubble if you want to do it black
I
and
mean,
white.
it's not that complicated, the building, to tell you.
No, and I agree with you. It should be very simple, so we want to
It
keep
just
it
couldn't be
as...
more confusing, I'm sorry.
Well, you started to do it here, but then it didn't follow
Well, then it
through.
wasn't, then it turned out it wasn't accurate either. All right, so are you
Okay.
asking to adjourn to our meeting on,
Yes, please.
Can I just ask one other question quickly while Zach's here? There's a funny thing that happens with the existing roof line in the Victorian part of the house. The ridge line that goes north, where after it hits that gable, most of the way to the end, it begins tilting down. And I'm just wondering why it would have done that. Is that original, and could or should that be cleaned up if it wasn't intentional or
You
original?
know, it's really hard to read that from the ground, and I'm not sure that it does that exactly that way, but I think that back structure has been altered to make it work with the front building, and I think that happened at an early date. But exactly what that ridge line does, I'm not sure whether it angles off that way. I'm not sure. I mean,
We can take some pictures.
take some pictures, just,
Because that is exposed on the inside a little bit. We need a little bit of...
I think it does something that's very strange.
I mean, okay,
Yep.
that's great. All right.
No, but I'll take it.
no, you're not kidding. All right,
requesting to adjourn to the next meeting, please.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you, I think it'll be better next time.
I'm going to make a motion to accept the applicant's request to adjourn this application. I'm sorry?
What?
To approve the applicant's request.
Okay, that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn the hearing of Beechwood Latch LLC, 101 Hill Street, to our next meeting.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion,
That's you.
do we have a motion to close the meeting
I
for
make a motion that we close this meeting.
April?
You taking them all out
April
for
8th?
drinks?
No, I'm too
sorry,
tired.
you mean-
Go ahead, no.
We close the meeting of the Board of Architects of the Historic Preservation, April 8,
Hi, guys.
2019.
Second that.
Aye.